lovers everywhere. I'm E-Train and welcome to E-Train Talks. I'm a literacy advocate, podcast host, and booktuber. And here at E-Train Talks, I love spreading book joy and promoting diversity in middle grade. And today's guest is a very exciting one indeed. They've written some beautiful, touching, and absolutely, positively extraordinary books. And this one I have right here, too. It's coming out in August, on August 1st, and it is The Year My Life Went Down the Toilet. You can see it on the screen. So, their books are full of LGBTQ+ and Jewish themes, and they are awesome. Both the books and them. Who's my guest, you're wondering? Well, it is Jake Maia Arlow. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jake.
Thank you so much, E-Train. I am so excited to be here and chat with you. This is like the most thrilling thing ever.
Well, it's the most thrilling thing for me, too, because after reading The Year My Life Went Down the Toilet, I kind of had to take a moment to process. Like, I loved the book so much, and then it clicked in my head. Oh, I get to interview them, too.
Oh, well, this is so cool. I haven't spoken to anyone about the book who's read it. So this is like the first time I'm getting to chat about it with someone who's actually read it, which is very exciting for me.
Well, I'm very glad that this is the first place we'll be talking about it with someone who has read it, because
Exactly.
I know everyone here is going to be dying to read it the moment it comes out on August 1st, and they'll be pre-ordering it right away because
Exactly.
I mean, your book is just so amazing, and we're pretty persuasive here. We kind of put the idea in the listener's mind, you gotta read this book, and
I love that. Yeah, some subliminal messaging.
yeah, exactly. And so, for the first question, let's just start the talk off with a question about your newest middle grade novel coming soon on August 1st, which I'm so glad I had the chance to read an advanced reader's copy of. It's The Year My Life Went Down the Toilet. You know it. You love it. This is hands down one of the best middle grade realistic fiction reads I've read in a while. It's filled cover to cover with pretty much everything in a good way. I mean,
there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there is. But, I mean, it all makes sense in the end. So, to start off, first of all, there's so many themes, so I'll just bring up a couple right now. So one is that your protagonist has Crohn's disease, and after reading your book, I know it's not something that I'd ever want to deal with if possible. So I'm curious to know if Crohn's is something that you have or if someone you know deals with, and why did you choose to include it as a topic for your story?
Yeah, I love that as a starting question because, yes, I do myself have Crohn's, which falls under the umbrella of inflammatory bowel disease, which includes Crohn's and ulcerative colitis. So both of those are kind of similar diseases. And it was something I was diagnosed with when I was in middle school, and I never really saw other people talking about it or even talking about, going to the bathroom, because that's such a big part of Crohn's and ulcerative colitis because they both, deal with your digestive tract, which all ends up in the bathroom. So hence the title, The Year My Life Went Down the Toilet. It's all connected. But yeah, it was really important to me to write about a character who was also just diagnosed with Crohn's, both because it's something that I went through and never had a lot of examples of how people, deal with it. And also, which I know we'll get into talking about later, I wanted to show like a whole community of people dealing with the same chronic illness and how they support each other and how it's so important to like have people who know what you're going through to talk to when you're experiencing something like that.
Well, that's pretty awesome. And I mean, we're definitely going to talk about the support. I guess it's a bit of a giveaway, but it's a support for our protagonist, Al. And I mean, I love the fact that The Year My Life Went Down the Toilet is an uncomfortable read, because I know that sounds strange, but middle school is such an uncomfortable time, and nobody really talks about it. I mean, people talk about the bullying and all that, and that sucks. It exists. That definitely does exist. But also, it's a time where I guess there are, changes in your body and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't like talking about that.
No, yeah, it's uncomfortable for everyone, and it's not something people, like to talk about, but every single person goes through it.
Yep. Every person. And so staying on the topic of the year my life went down the toilet, and of course, middle school. So Al has a crush on one of her Crohn's disease support group friends. And we actually find out that her crush likes her back. That being said, I've sometimes felt that there's a part of the story that's missing in middle grade reads. And your book, The Year My Life Went Down the Toilet, has that missing piece. Crushes. I mean, in middle school, we do have crushes. And, it's in elementary school, it's kind of like, ooh, I like this girl, but I have what that means. Now, in middle school, people think that they know everything about crushes now. And they have no idea. I mean, I'm saying that in middle school, so I probably...
Yeah, I'm like, yeah, it's cool that you have no idea, because that's definitely true.
Us middle schoolers think we know everything. And yeah. So anyway, we do have crushes in middle school, and there aren't too many middle grade books that actually tackle this topic, and it makes your story even more relatable. So why did you decide to include crushes, specifically Al's, which is on crushes on Mina, and why did you include your book?
So I think, like you were saying, it's something that was a huge part of my middle school experience. Like, I always developed, little crushes on people. And even if it like never went anywhere, but even so, it's still like, it's so fun to talk about it. It's so fun to like just have that in your life to like, kind of makes the school day more fun, whatever. Like, it's a big part of middle school. So it felt like if I'm writing a book for and about middle schoolers, like that has to be an aspect I include. And also it was just important for me to have this like queer crush element in the book, which again, I know is a question I saw. We'll get to more of the stuff about the queer content in the book, but it was just really important because both this and my first middle grade book, Almost Flying, really center like the crushes that the main character has. And I think it's just because it's both such a good element to like tell the story, you're dealing with how you feel it within your own body, and then you're also thinking, oh, I like this other person, so it's like internal, external, all the like aspects of middle school that are stressful or scary or make your palms sweaty, like all of that I like to include in my stories.
Well, I'm so glad that you do. And it feels like in middle school every day there's somebody like, oh, I have a girlfriend now. Oh, we broke up. Oh, she friend zoned me. Oh.
Oh my gosh, I love that. This is good intel. Like, I need all this intel for my next book.
I'm your intel. I'm your spy into
Perfect. That's great.
So crushes are a huge part of middle school, and every day it seems like there's a new gossip going around that will go nowhere, and nobody cares about it the next day. It feels like people think it's our life in middle school, and it
but like it is while you're there, like no matter how you're feeling that day in that moment. And that's also what I like about writing for middle grade. Like, every emotion you have, and I'm sure you could corroborate this, feels so big and so important because it's like the first time you're feeling that. So like that's also what I love writing about. Like, it's just everything feels so like life altering.
Exactly. Everything is, and everything also feels like it. So you're now to continue on about like how much I love The Year My Life Went Down the Toilet. It is just fantastic, seriously fantastic, and I could not put it down. And there's so much going on in the most amazing way possible. And as I mentioned earlier, it's so relatable for middle graders and middle schoolers specifically. And so I'm so glad that you're deciding, oh, I'm going to write for tweens and teens because we're so awesome and nobody would ever know.
Agreed. Totally agreed.
So I've spoken to a number of authors who say they write stories that they wish they had access to growing up. So do you write for a younger audience for that reason as well? And why do you choose, if that's not your reason, why do you choose to write for tweens and teens and young adults?
Yeah, that's such a great question, because that definitely is an aspect of why I wanted to get into writing middle grade and young adult, because like with The Year My Life Went Down the Toilet, the main character, is definitely not me, because I never realized I was queer then. I never had that community of, supportive friends with the same chronic illness as me, but she does, she is queer, she does have a chronic illness, and she is Jewish, which are all things that like all identities that I have now that maybe I hadn't embraced in middle school. So it's something like I want to show that all those things can like coexist, and that, that's like a person has many identities regardless of who you are. You might, be someone who loves to read books. That's an aspect of your identity. Like everything you love or do or are is an aspect of your identity. So that was really important to me. And also, like I was saying, it's just way more fun to write books when you're in the mindset of like a kid. Like I can easily remember back to middle school when everything felt so huge and serious. And then I can remember even closer back to high school when everything still felt like that, but things, started to get a little more serious and things really did have some more real world consequences. Not that things don't in middle school, but like it just every year it gets more and more like real almost. So I think I love writing for, your age group and a little older, because it does feel like both I'm getting to tell stories that I wish I could have had, and I'm getting to tell stories for like a group of kids who like it's everything feels so much bigger and more important and more exciting. So those are sort of the two reasons.
Well, those are two great reasons. And my next question for you is kind of moving on to not the story, like we're talking about the characters that you write, but now let's talk about Jake. So
okay.
I'll talk about you. So I read on your website that you co-wrote a musical.
I saw this question. Okay, I'm ready.
About a gay demon who competes in a reality TV show. Oh my God. That itself is such a gripping description. And I want to go watch it and read the script right now. So, I mean, I'm sure everyone is so curious to know, where did that idea come from?
Ooh, such a great question. I think, well, so it like I really love also writing like plays and musicals, because in my books, like you could probably tell, dialogue is a really important aspect of my writing. Like I just really love, that's like one of my favorite parts of writing novels. So I actually in college studied a lot of playwriting. And so this is like at my school, we have this every year. There's a original musical around the holidays, and it gets to be like whatever we want it to be about. So we just came up with the idea because we wanted to like write about a silly reality show. That gay Christmas demon was actually Krampus. I don't know if you know Krampus. So yeah, that was, you could, I think he's like a character. I don't know so much about Krampus, but I think he's like from Norway or some Nordic country. Yeah, I just really love writing like also scripts and stuff for musicals and plays, because it feels like another aspect of, just another avenue of storytelling. So that's also something I really enjoy doing.
Well, I mean, I hope that I can see more of your playwriting, because just that description alone, I want to see so much more. It sounds so cool.
Oh, thank you, E-Train.
And I'm also so glad that there's somebody else who doesn't know anything about like the Krampus and all that, because like, I mean, I don't talk to too many other Jews on this podcast. So
yeah, I don't really, it's funny that a lot of people who were at my school were also Jewish. So we were all writing like Christmas shows, but it's like Jewish people write some of the best Christmas music. We write some of the best Christmas movies. So yeah.
We're multi-dimensional.
Exactly.
So now I'm curious to know. So of course we have moving aside from the gay demon in a reality TV show.
Yeah.
I happen to find that you have a TikTok, and I mean, you have over 15,000 followers and 1.2 million likes. That in itself is so awesome, because I've seen so many like people saying authors need to have so many followers on TikTok and all that for their books to get noticed. And I'm so glad that you're the one who has all these followers. Your books need to be seen by
thank you.
So anyway, I'm curious to know that do you think TikTok is a platform a good platform for your story? And is it helpful in boosting sales, reaching younger audience?
Yeah,
Do you recommend
that's such a
it?
good question because I think my answer this year would be different from my answer last year because I was using it a lot to promote my young adult novel, How to Excavate a Heart. And I think for that, it was really great because a lot of like the teens and young adults who are on TikTok, like they are watching and they are engaging with that content. But then I think I just got, it was really overwhelming having to make all those TikToks and think of ideas. So I kind of backed away from it and I have been taking a break from it. And I hope that when I do go back on, like I'm hoping to make some TikToks about the year my life went down the toilet. But I think for like a middle grade audience, obviously I'm sure a lot of like your friends and even
Yeah.
maybe you are like on TikTok, but I think it's just harder to reach that like group because maybe you're not searching at like book talk, or a lot of people who buy middle grade novels are like the adults in your life rather than actually like you. So I think that's what makes it a little harder for middle grade. So I mean, I'd love to hear your ideas for how I could like reach out to a middle school audience, but that's been like sort of a harder part of TikTok for me.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I don't have TikTok personally, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's more common in like young adults, I guess. I mean, I'm not
Yeah, yeah.
speaking from the like mindset of a young adult, but if I were to kind of try and work my way into their mind,
Okay.
like be a little fly on the wall, I do think that
Mhm.
they're not just on TikTok more, but I feel like they're also probably looking at more mature things rather than dance. I
Mhm.
mean, middle graders are probably looking up like dance TikToks, and I mean, I also think that your story is real. At least the year my life went down the toilet. It's pretty niche because
Mhm.
I
I
mean, you
agree.
have Jewish themes, Crohn's disease,
Yeah.
queerness, and
Yeah.
that. So it's pretty niche as well. So,
Yeah, I
but
agree. I think
yeah,
hopefully TikTok's really good at like finding exactly who your audience
yeah,
might
that's
be.
true.
So maybe there's,
Maybe
middle
there's some more
schoolers who
talent.
are, yeah, yeah, exactly. So I don't know. We'll see. That's a great question though.
Yeah, thank you. And I think I could think of some ways to promote your story through TikTok. So anyway, I talked a bit about how you include Jewish themes in your stories, and I love that so much because like it just has everything that I love in middle grade. You have the queerness, the Jewish themes, everything. I mean,
Yeah.
so I'm curious to know what's your advice for Jewish or just marginalized groups in
Hmm.
general who are afraid but want to write their stories?
Yeah, that's such a great question because also like like you said, this book does like Al and myself have many intersecting identities, and I think that can be hard to like, especially for this book. I was like, oh, are people gonna think this is too much? That, the main character is queer, the main character has a chronic illness, she is Jewish, and also there are like queer adults in her life too. So like that, and like, but like that's the same with my life. Like I am also all those things and also have queer, like I'm an adult but like older adults in my life and family. And so when I was thinking about that, it did take a minute to think, oh, are people going to think this is too much? But then I realized, no, like this is my life, these are the identities that I also have. So I think it's just like understanding that there are people out there who share those identities with you, no matter, like you said, how niche it might be. Like there are, 8 billion people on Earth. There's going to be other people. I know plenty of people who are also Jewish and queer and have chronic illnesses. Like a lot of those things kind of go together anyway. So like it's just really a matter of like just putting, if you have like these identities that you're afraid to put on the page, just try writing, from your perspective at first or your experience, and they might just naturally come onto the page because that's like the perspective you're writing from regardless.
So you're starting off writing a memoir, and then you
Exactly. Yeah.
find that
Yeah.
character in it, and then boom.
Yeah. I mean, I do actually, a lot of the time when I'm coming up with story ideas, I'll write, because this comes from like actually playwriting and assignments I would have in playwriting class. I'll try to write, if I have like a vague idea of a character, like with Al or, with any of my characters, I'll write a like monologue from their point of view. And it's just like free writing, write whatever you want on the page for, an hour, which is a long time. But by that point, you might have some ideas like what the voice will sound like, what the character likes, what they don't like. So that's like something I find really helpful at the beginning of my writing process.
Well, that is so awesome. And I'm curious to know, so this is a question that wasn't on the question.
Okay.
So, especially in The Year My Life Went Down the Toilet, I mean, it's kind of one of the only books that I've read that has like text speech. Because I mean, I don't think there are any authors except maybe you and a couple others who, unless we're like, because text speech is always changing. Like,
yeah,
people like 10 years ago might have said like LOL, or I mean, people still do that. I do that.
But I feel like before it used to mean like actually mean laugh out loud, and
Yeah.
now you just say it like as like, oh lol, like whatever.
Yeah, like lol, but no one's actually laughing. Anyway,
exactly.
I say anyway, lol. Anyway, I say it again. Oh my gosh, what am I doing? So I'm curious to know, how do you kind of come up with ideas? How do you know really how we text?
I mean, I'm so glad to hear that you say it seems like authentic, because I'm really just writing both a mixture of like how I write, because I feel I'm not that ancient, I'm like 25, so I feel like I'm still up on the current trends, but also I have a 12-year-old brother, which helps a lot. He is also, I mean, he doesn't text that much, but he knows like some of the stuff that's going on. And just also like being on TikTok or being on other social media where I see how like people are interacting, how they're talking, because it's obviously such an important part of, and it even was back when I was in middle school, like texting or, calling, whatever, probably not calling, like FaceTiming, whatever it is, like that's such an important part of, your experience, because you have what's going on in school. You might not be allowed to have your phone, but then there's so much that happens after school, texting people, asking to hang out, whatever it is. So like, that's really important, because I feel like it wouldn't be an accurate representation of like middle school now if it didn't have at least some texting in it.
And for reference, everybody, if you don't really know what like text speech is, what kids say now, I'll give you an example from my school kind of tech group.
I would love to hear.
One kid says, OMG, you are like you're, but spelled you are so right, for real. That's like FR.
Of course, yeah.
No cap on ONG, which is on God. That's what we do now, I guess.
I love it. That feels right. Also, it helps because last week I was at actually I was volunteering at a camp for kids with Crohn's and IBD, one that I went to as a kid. So I also heard a lot of what people are just saying. So now I've been going around saying like bruh like all the time.
So, and bruh is also a weird one, because now, at least at my school, it's different at some schools, but like nobody even says like bruh as in brother. People now say it when they're like, "Are you serious?" Like bruh.
Yeah,
it's so
that's
weird.
What I noticed.
The way kids talk now is so weird. Although I'm saying it in third person, but I guess I say that too.
I feel that too though, because when I was your age, I also was like observing, and also like I felt very self-conscious about using that kind of like slang, but also like observing it. I don't know. I feel that like sort of feeling like you're watching what everyone else is doing.
And folks, if you want to write text speech, do not include periods, because kids
never
do not write periods.
Do not capitalize the beginning of your sentence.
If you do that, it is passive aggressive. It says it is. Do not do that. I mean, see if
sometimes
we get advice here.
Exactly. Sometimes when I'm writing adult characters, though, I'll have them write periods and capitalize it so that it's like the characters can comment on like, oh, that's so silly that they would say something like that.
Yeah. So moving on from the awesomeness, the weirdness, the craziness, but also the awesomeness of how we text.
So true.
You're a podcast producer as well, and you can be heard on many different kinds of podcasts, like Invisibilia on NPR, which is pretty cool. And I'm curious to know, when and why did you start podcasting?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I think it all sort of like with the question about the musical I wrote and this, it's all stuff that allow like different mediums of storytelling, because writing a book, that's something that people are reading. Listening to a podcast, you're hearing. Like a lot of the jobs I've done, you have to write a script for it, so you're writing as well for that. And for playwriting, obviously you're writing too. So I think I just enjoy anything that I get to write, like be creative, especially with podcasting, because usually I wasn't the one in front of the microphone and I would write scripts for other people. So it's really fun to try to imagine how like they would speak in their own voice or that kind of thing. So I got into it because it was like something I loved listening to podcasts, and I knew I was like, when I realized it was a job I could have, I was so excited, and I was so, I tried to apply to every potential internship or job. And it really is like there's so many transferable skills. If you love to write, like there's so many options that you could do. You could, write plays, write musicals, write books, write podcast scripts. Like there's so many different options, which I think is so cool because it's all storytelling, but just in different mediums.
Exactly. And storytelling is now it's really blossomed because I
Yeah.
guess you could say that even like writing on social media is a bit of a medium for
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of people who write in their like Instagram captions,
yeah.
Instagram captions, they're writing like whole stories. Like there's
Yeah.
so many ways of telling stories. You're so right.
So I mean, it's so awesome that there's another podcast knower, and also a member of that podcast community who's here. And also, I'm just for everybody who wants to learn more, where can people hear your podcast? Where are they streaming?
Yeah, so I've worked on different ones. So I would say the best place to go is my website if you want to see like all the ones I've worked on. It's jakearlow.com, just my name and .com, and then I have a section for podcasts. But I've worked on a bunch of different ones like Not Past It from Spotify. If you listen to the beginning ones, you could hear some stuff I've worked on. And I do have, you could find it again on my website, but the one podcast I've like actually spoken on, I guess, is Invisibilia, where I wrote a personal essay about going to the Crohn's and colitis camp called Poop Friends. That story is called. So you could look it up that way.
Well, now I want to listen. So
And you should. It's fun.
well, now my next question for you is while this is typically a middle grade podcast, and of course we're talking mainly about your newest middle grade book, but you also have some YA stories out there, including a YA lesbian Jewish masterpiece, How to Excavate a Heart. So can you tell us about your YA book that you've published and
Yes.
brief elevator pitch?
Absolutely. And I saw no spoilers, so don't worry, I won't give any spoilers. So I feel like it's more, there's not too many spoilers I really could give, but yeah, it is, like you said, a lesbian Jewish young adult romance that takes place over Christmas time, and both the characters are Jewish and sort of relate differently to Christmas. One of them really does not like Christmas. One of them sort of tolerates it, enjoys it. I feel like there's different, like I'm sort of a mix of both when it comes to the Christmas season, being a Jew in the US. But yeah, it's just the story of two Jewish lesbians in Washington, D.C. for their winter break, falling in love and making mistakes and loving science. That's a big aspect of it too. Yeah.
Well, that sounds like an amazing read. And I mean, I also like the topic of how Christmas for Jews, because I mean, while it's not I don't want to go into this huge debate about it, but I do I mean, I guess I feel like I'm the kind of tolerate, enjoy it kind of type, because
Yeah.
I love the music, though it can also sometimes be a bit, like you see the beautiful lights all across the street and you can't really be a part of something like extravagant, I guess.
Yeah, that's such a good point because I feel like it is so much about it's just because the US is such like a Christian country, and especially because Christmas is not a super religious holiday, though obviously it has, it is religious, but
Yeah.
it's become more like a broad holiday. I think there is the aspect of like wanting to join in. And I remember when I was a little kid, I asked my parents if I could have a Christmas tree, and they were like, okay, we'll get like a small one. So like there is really a huge aspect of growing up, especially being Jewish in the US and like wanting to maybe participate in it, or being like, oh, why is it, every store starts playing Christmas music in September. So like I feel a little bit of both, and I also love Christmas music.
Yeah. Although the Dollar Tree has Christmas like in August.
All year round, yeah, that is true.
I guess they're staying prepared for $1.25.
Exactly, very important.
And now I'm also curious about what your opinion is on banned books. So banned books can be a really heavy topic, but I think it's something that's really important to discuss with authors, especially of books that have queerness, because in places like Florida, to name just one, they're being banned left and right because people can't really accept the truth. And I'm just curious, first of all, have your books been banned or have been the subject of censorship? And what's your stance on book banning?
Yeah, I mean, luckily I just haven't seen or sought out much information about whether or not my books have been banned. I know that there have been places where, in libraries, if they were on a pride display, they've been taken down or something like that, which unfortunately is very common. I mean, my stance is that I think it's bad and terrible that books are being banned, which makes sense. I know a lot of people say like, oh, when your book is banned, it can increase eyes on it. It can make it like more popular. But that is just really, it's not a great way to look at book banning, because that also means that there are people who cannot read it or might not be able to access it. Or, even if it's not officially banned, if someone like a queer kid who lives in a family that might not want them to read that content, like they might not be able to even find it in the library, or they might not be able to find it at their school library. So I think obviously having books with like characters of color, with queer characters, with any type of marginalized character, like the more access that kids have to it, the more important it is and like the better it is. So obviously I think, book bans are not a good thing. And I think like I don't know, it's never good to have a book be banned in any capacity, for sure.
I think it's really interesting, your point, especially on how people say that book banning is good for like marketing and all that.
Yeah.
But I mean, just it's horrible for especially authors who aren't necessarily known, and for the kids in the communities or even in the whole county or state. They can't read stories that they relate to. And these stories are out there to say you matter. It's just absolutely horrible. The book banning, obviously, it's pretty bad.
That's such a great way of phrasing it. I totally agree.
Well, my next question for you is, well, I'm curious to know, as a member of the queer community, what does Pride Month mean to you?
Ooh, that's a fun question. I mean, I think Pride Month means a lot of different things to me. It's just really exciting that means that people, are celebrating queer stories and are celebrating, just queer people. It also just shows how much like more work we have to do, because especially in Pride Month, sometimes there's people who are pushing back, like with book bannings and stuff like that. And there's just like Pride Month is amazing, and it's a way for people to, celebrate themselves, celebrate queer family members or community members. But it's also, it shows, how much more work we have to do to help queer people of color be accepted, or just queer people who maybe aren't out, or queer people who have all these different things happening in their lives. And, like we were talking about with The Year My Life Went Down the Toilet, usually queerness is not the only thing someone, about their identity that might be marginalized. They might also, be disabled, belong to a marginalized religion, be a person of color. So like there's so many different aspects to queer people's lives, and like it's so great that there's a month to celebrate that and to, just have people think more about queer people in their lives. And I hope that continues throughout the year as well.
Well, I hope so too, because it's also important that we don't just celebrate Pride in June, because people don't just exist in one month.
Exactly.
People are all over the world every single day, every single year. They don't just disappear for the next 11 months. we need to celebrate.
I agree. And I feel like what you're doing, like interviewing so many queer authors and just other people who are, talking about queer books, talking about queer authors, just discussing queerness all year, like that's such an important way to do that. So thank you for what you're doing too.
Thank you. And thank you for what you're doing. Right back at you.
Oh, thank you.
So, my next question for you is not a book question, but it's an important question nonetheless.
Okay.
So, I read that you are a bagel. I'm going to try and pronounce this correctly.
I believe in you.
Okay. Connoisseur.
Oh my gosh, you take French? That was amazing.
Thank you. I do take French at school, so.
Okay, there we go. Yeah. Yes, perfect
I have
job.
so much relief flooding through me.
Yeah.
It's coming right back to
Honestly,
me.
I think you pronounce it better than I do because you had like the ugh. Like I also
Yeah.
took French. Yeah, that was good.
Thank you. So I'm sure everyone viewing would like to know more about this. And for the record, a bagel connoisseur is kind of I'm not even gonna try to.
I think like the Americanized way is like connoisseur kind of
Okay.
is how I've heard people say
All
it.
right.
But I think how you're saying it is great.
Okay. I don't think I can top that first pronunciation. Anyway, it's an
Yeah,
expert
no.
on bagels. So can you
Yes.
share more? And do you make your own bagels or have a favorite
Oh my
bagel or bagel
gosh.
shop?
This is such an amazing question. Yes. So basically, as a Jew from New York, I have a
Yeah.
lot of opinions on bagels. I currently live in Seattle, so there aren't many
Okay.
bagels. So I have been making some of my own, though it's really time intensive because there's just a lot going on. And if
Mhm.
anyone's made bread, there's a lot of time that you have to wait, that you have to spend rising, proving. But yes, so basically, if you're getting a bagel in New York, if you're getting it fresh in the morning, never get it toasted. That's my firm opinion because usually it'll be warm. It'll be like a little gooey on the inside. So good. My go-to order, if it's a fresh bagel, is like a sesame bagel, just with plain cream cheese, maybe a chive cream cheese. Love that. Um, and I mean, I love every type of bagel, everything bagel, all that. This is like really kind of embarrassing to admit, and I think it's sort of a food crime, but I used to get, before I stopped eating fish and meat, I used to get a cinnamon raisin bagel with tuna salad on it, which I know is, yeah, not good. So I would recommend not doing that. That was
Yeah, that's a
before I
great.
became an expert on bagels, I would say. But now, but also whatever bagel is calling you, that's the right bagel for you at that moment. That's my belief.
Well, we don't have any bagels here in California, and while I'm not from New York, I mean, we have a Noah's Bagels. That's kind of a
Okay.
guy. And
I've
Noah's.
never heard of that, but seems good.
Oh yeah, so I thought it was like all over the place. I don't know. I'm not a
Yeah, I
huge
haven't.
bagel expert. So
Okay.
basically just a bagel place and a bagel chain. And it's
Oh,
pretty
okay.
I'm not a huge tuna salad on a cinnamon raisin bagel fan,
Yeah,
but
I wouldn't recommend you starting it.
yeah, it's a path that I do not want to take.
Yeah, that's good. So
And then
I've
I'd go on a
learned from my mistakes.
dark road from there.
Exactly. Who knows what'll be next? A
Yeah,
blueberry bagel with brisket. I don't know.
I mean, that doesn't sound horrible. Maybe on the side,
Maybe
maybe.
on the side. Yeah, that could be
Yeah,
okay.
that's like the ultimate Jewish like dinner.
Yeah, yeah, brisket with a bagel. Yeah, I mean that is a classic.
Yeah, that is. So now it's time for the final question of the interview, and this interview flew by for me.
Yeah.
So I've asked every single person that I've interviewed this question, so no pressure. So if you could be or if you could meet any literary character, by them what I mean by that is you could be or meet your favorite author or it could be your favorite character in a
Ooh.
story. So who would it be and why?
I love this question. Okay, so when I was a kid, my favorite series ever was Anne of Green Gables. I was like so obsessed with it, and I still am, but I haven't read it in a while. I just loved Anne so much. I loved the fact that she lived on Prince Edward Island. Like that was so cool. So I'd love to go to Prince Edward
Oh
Island. That's
yeah.
a really important part of it, and meet Anne and like hang out with her and I don't know, probably like her as an adult because in the later books she is an adult and then there's a whole separate spin-off series that's like her kid as well. There's like a lot of Anne of Green Gables books. So probably Anne because she had a really big impact on me as a kid.
Well, that is a great answer. And I think the going to Prince Edward Island part is very important
That's
because I
that's the
mean,
most important part,
yeah,
yeah.
like seeing Anne in Sacramento, California will not really have that same, that same feeling to it.
Exactly.
Like,
As the kids might say, it wouldn't hit the same
yeah,
as
it just hits
if
different going to
exactly.
Prince Edward Island. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me today, Jake. And
Thank you,
everybody,
Adrian.
this has been Jake Maia Arlow, the master of text speech, the playwright aficionado.
And
Jake
bagel, are you
Maia,
gonna say bagel connoisseur?
yeah, the bagel connoisseur.
Oh, beautiful.
Thank you. So there's heartbreak, there's betrayal, but through it all, there's love and friendship in the year my life went down the toilet.
Oh, nice.
Bum, bum, bum.
Oh, I love it.
So while Jake is not on Twitter because they wanted to kind of escape it, which I don't necessarily I'm not gonna put them down for that.
Thank you.
So you can follow them on social media, like on Instagram at Jake Maia and at Jake Who's a Girl on TikTok.
Yes.
So
I think also my Instagram now is Jake Who's a Silly Goose. So if you're looking, you can also just search Jake Arlow and I think you'll find me. But
all
yes.
Right. So now it's at Jake Who's a Silly Goose, which is an epic name.
Thank you.
So that's all for now, everybody. Keep reading, stay safe, and remember, let's not just celebrate Pride Month in June. Let's make it Pride Year.